Ever notice how some men seem to predict life before it happens? While everyone else reacts, they anticipate. When others get caught off guard, they're already on plan C. Calm, controlled, and one move away from winning. It almost feels unfair, doesn't it? But it's not magic, it's mindset. A psychology that keeps them 10 steps ahead of the world. These men don't have superpowers. They have awareness, sharp like a blade, quiet like a shadow. They understand something most people ignore. The game of life is not played in real time, it's played in advance. You don't prepare when things happen, you prepare before they do. That's the secret. They study patterns, not just in people, but in life itself, because everything, every emotion, every reaction follows a rhythm. The man who notices these patterns starts to see the world like a map. And once you can read the map, you don't just move, you navigate. When they walk into a room, they're not focused on talking, they're observing. They listen more than they speak. They notice who interrupts, who tries too hard, who stays silent. They catch the smallest shifts, a twitch, a tone, a glance. While others chase attention, they collect information. That's why they rarely lose. It's not just about being smart, it's about being strategic. Smart men often overthink. Strategic men think ahead. They ask questions nobody else asks. What's likely to happen next? What's the outcome if I do nothing? They know timing is everything, and sometimes the most powerful move is to wait. Being 10 steps ahead isn't about speed, it's about intention. Every choice is a move on the board, and they never move without purpose. They play the long game where patience isn't weakness, it's a weapon. When they face challenges, they don't panic, they zoom out. While everyone else focuses on the fire, they're studying where the spark came from. They don't just fight problems, they understand them. And understanding, my friend, is half the victory. These men aren't fearless, they've simply mastered fear. They've felt failure, embarrassment, rejection. But instead of running, they dissected it. They studied how fear works, how the mind reacts under pressure. And once you understand your fear, it stops controlling you. They prepare in silence. When no one's watching, they're sharpening their mind. They read, they learn, they plan. Not for today, but for the storms that might come tomorrow. Because staying 10 steps ahead means never letting life surprise you too much. They know emotions are useful, but dangerous when untrained. A man ruled by emotion is like a ship in a storm, powerful but directionless. So they stay calm when others explode, they use logic when others use ego, and when they finally speak, every word lands like a bullet, clean, deliberate, precise. They don't compete with others, they compete with their own potential. They're not obsessed with being better than the next man. They're obsessed with being better than the man they were yesterday. That's why they never burn out. Their motivation isn't built on comparison, it's built on evolution, and evolution requires solitude. You can't think clearly in noise. You can't predict when you're distracted. So they step back often, away from gossip, drama, and fake urgency. Not because they're antisocial, but because clarity demands space. They value peace over popularity, depth over attention, and that's why they see what others miss. They understand influence. They don't force it, they earn it. When they speak, people listen because their words have weight. They don't chase validation, they give value. And value builds silent power, the kind that doesn't need to be announced. If you've ever met one of them, you can feel it. He doesn't brag, he doesn't rush, he doesn't try to prove anything. Yet somehow, you sense he knows more than he says. That's presence. built through patience, observation, and control. And it's magnetic. To stay 10 steps ahead, you need discipline, the kind that doesn't depend on motivation. Motivation fades, discipline stays. When it's cold, when it's late, when nobody's watching, that's when the gap is built. The gap between the average and the aware. The gap between reacting and predicting. Every morning they rehearse life in their mind. They imagine scenarios, not to worry, but to prepare. What if this deal fails? What if this person lies? What if this plan breaks? They play out every angle until their mind becomes a mental gym. So when reality hits, it feels familiar, because they've already lived it. That's psychological training most people never do. They spend time scrolling, complaining, wishing, while the men who stay ahead are conditioning their minds like athletes train their bodies, quietly, consistently, unapologetically. And the beautiful irony, the smarter they get, the simpler they live. Because complexity doesn't mean intelligence, clarity does. They don't waste time chasing everything, they focus on what matters. That's why they never run out of energy. They're not scattered, they're aligned. Sometimes people call them cold or emotionless, but it's not coldness, it's control. They've learned not every reaction deserves their energy, not every opinion deserves their defense, not every argument deserves their time, because staying ahead means preserving energy for what truly counts. They know power isn't loud, it's quiet, subtle, steady. The loudest man in the room is usually the most insecure, the quiet one. He's calculating, watching, ready to move when it matters. Every relationship, every opportunity, every setback, they view it like data. They analyze it, learn from it, and move forward stronger. That's why they rarely repeat mistakes, because they actually study their past instead of escaping it. And the most important part, they never stop learning. They know intelligence isn't about knowing everything, it's about being open to new understanding. That's why they adapt faster than others. The world changes, they adjust. People change, they observe. Nothing surprises them for long. Being 10 steps ahead isn't arrogance, it's awareness, it's preparation, it's seeing the unseen because you took the time to look. While others rush to speak, they slow down to see, and in that silence they find power. The real depth of a man who stays 10 steps ahead lies not just in how he thinks, but in how he feels. Because true strength isn't about being emotionless, it's about understanding emotion so deeply that it never blinds you. These men know emotions are signals, not orders. Anger tells them something's wrong, fear warns them, sadness teaches them empathy, but none of it controls them. They experience everything without being owned by anything. That's why they seem so balanced, even when life shakes the ground beneath them. When others break down, they bend, they adjust, they breathe. That calmness you see, it's not natural, it's trained, it's earned. They've learned that the loudest reactions are often the weakest defenses, so they never rush to prove a point, never waste breath explaining to people who can't understand their vision. They move in silence and let their results talk. That's why they're so unpredictable, because their peace makes them impossible to read. You'll never know what they're planning until it is done. They mastered emotional detachment, not because they don't care, but because they refuse to give power to chaos. The world thrives on reaction, but they live in response. And that's what keeps them untouchable. They also understand people better than people understand themselves. Not through manipulation, but through observation. They notice how someone's tone shifts when they lie, how eyes drift when they feel shame, how energy changes when motives turn selfish. They read silence like others read text. That's why they make powerful leaders. They lead not by forcing people, but by understanding them. When they speak, people follow, not because they demand it, but because they trust it. Their presence commands respect long before their words ever do. They carry an energy that says, "I've been through the fire and I'm still here." And that kind of strength can't be faked. It's built through years of restraint, patience, and quiet pain. They've seen betrayal, faced loss, walked alone when others gave up, and instead of hardening them, it refined them. Every scar turned into wisdom, every failure became data, every heartbreak taught them something about human nature. They don't chase revenge, because they know time exposes everything. They just keep moving forward, unbothered, unshaken, unstoppable. These men know that real control doesn't come from controlling others. It comes from mastering yourself, your impulses, your words, your reactions. The moment you learn to pause before responding, to think before speaking, to choose peace over ego, you step into a level of power most people never touch. They operate from logic and intuition working together, not emotion and impulse tearing each other apart. That's why when they enter chaos, they bring order. When everyone's losing their head, they become the calm center that holds everything together. They've mastered the art of invisibility, moving with purpose but never seeking spotlight. Because when you crave attention, you become predictable, and predictability kills power. They know when to speak and when to disappear, when to move and when to wait. They never reveal their entire plan, only fragments. People see their success but never their strategy. They win quietly and let the world wonder how, and that mystery, combined with discipline, builds an aura you can't buy or fake. But even with all their control, they're not robotic. They're deeply human. They love deeply, think deeply, and care deeply, but selectively. They don't let everyone in because they've learned not everyone deserves access. They protect their peace the way a king guards his crown. You'll never see them begging for loyalty, because they know loyalty revealed too soon is loyalty misplaced. They watch people's consistency, not their promises. They let time do the filtering, because time always tells the truth. They're visionaries, not dreamers lost in fantasy, but realists who build what they imagine. They see opportunity where others see chaos. While most complain about circumstances, they look for angles, exits, openings. Their optimism isn't naive, it's strategic. They believe things will work out because they're willing to make them work. That's why they keep winning in silence. They know that being 10 steps ahead means staying grounded even when the world gets noisy. It's about listening more than you speak, thinking longer than you react, and preparing deeper than anyone expects. They understand that masculinity isn't about aggression, it's about control. It's not about dominance over others, it's dominance over self. The kind of power that comes from restraint, from walking away when your pride wants to stay, from staying calm when your ego wants to explode. Real power is silent. It's knowing you could destroy but choosing to discipline instead. That's why they're respected. Not feared, not worshipped, respected. Because men like this move with reason, not rage. And even when life throws them into uncertainty, they adapt. They don't panic about what they can't control. They build around it. They focus on their responses, their routines, their energy. They know consistency is what creates progress, not perfection. While others wait for motivation, they rely on structure. They wake up with purpose even when they don't feel like it. Because the truth is, staying ahead isn't about talent, it's about discipline. The ability to do what needs to be done, especially when no one's watching. They also have an unshakable sense of perspective. When things go wrong, they don't say, "Why me?" They say, "What's this trying to teach me?" That one question keeps them from falling apart. They see setbacks as signals, not sentences. To them, failure isn't an ending, it's an upgrade, a painful, necessary part of refinement. They don't get stuck on losses because they know the future doesn't care about your excuses, it rewards your adjustments. Every time life knocks them down, they rise with data, not drama. And that's what makes them different. They never get trapped in the noise of emotion or the fog of distraction. They stay ahead because they choose awareness over impulse, purpose over comfort, and vision over validation. They've made peace with being misunderstood because they know not everyone can see what's 10 steps ahead. Most people live in the moment. They live in the movement. They're not chasing trends. They're building timelines. They're not proving anything. They're becoming everything they were meant to be. So when you see a man like that, calm, collected, unbothered, understand that you're not just seeing confidence, you're seeing control. You're seeing a mind that's been sharpened by storms, a soul that's made peace with patience, and a heart that's been trained to move with purpose. That's the psychology of men who stay ahead, men who don't just play the game, but rewrite the rules. Because while the world sleeps, they plan. While others argue, they observe. While most react, they predict. And when it's time to act, they're already there. 10 steps ahead, smiling quietly, watching the world try to figure out how they do it.